All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. I know I'm running a little bit late, but Thomas Dye, Army Man, good to see you in here. We literally just got some slate breaking news that Luka Doncic's going to be out. I had to update the thumbnail really fast and then do a little bit of research on who I want to prioritize, that kind of thing. So give me a little bit of a break there. But of course, this is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we look at last night's slate, we look at today's slate, and then we really just kind of game plan for who we want to go over on, who we want to go under on. And then, of course, on the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m. for VIP members only, me and B-Dubs, aka Brandon, will talk through what we're doing on the slate in a bit more detail. So let's look at last night. Last night was okay. It could have been great if I would have trusted my gut a little bit more. So a few key pieces here. Terry Rozier was a core play. He made a lot of sense once we got the news that uh, that Bridges wasn't going to play, or it wasn't Bridges. We got the news that who was it? The rookie. I'm blanking on the rookie. But once we got that news, Terry Rozier became a core play. Bryce McCown became a core play. And they were lower owned than I thought they were going to be at 13.5% ownership and 38.5% ownership at 31K for Bryce. I thought he was going to be 60% owned or something like that, but we'll take it every single time. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was someone that was a core play, but he did fall for me a little bit during the pre-lock show, but he was still someone that I was very high on. Karl-Anthony Towns was a core play, so very strong start with these guys, but there were quite a few misses. I don't remember exactly who all my cores were yesterday, but I think I had the Timberwolves guy who didn't do very well, but started, and then there was another guy too who didn't come through. But there were some disappointments along the core plays, but we really hit on some of these guys. Andre Drummond, the Domination Station gave us exposure to, so that wasn't crazy. AO made a bit more sense once we lost DeMar DeRozan and Levine last night. He was fine. He wasn't someone that I had a ton of, so that definitely hurt me a good bit last night. Kawhi Leonard made the nuts line up, but he wasn't special. He didn't really do anything. He just kind of was that last fill-in piece for Fire Dog. So he made the line work. We were over the field on Kawhi, though. And then Trae Young was a core play for Brandon last night, so that panned out pretty well for him. I was over the field on Trae. Once we had the value that Bryce gave us, it was a bit easier for me to pay up for Trae. But he wasn't someone I was trying to prioritize. Thomas, I don't think Nas Reed was a core play for me. I don't think so. I mean, I could just look. But anyway, yesterday's in the past. Let's look at it. It was an okay slate, like I said, but it definitely could have been so much better. I feel like we hit on so much. But the one thing that I was happy about, but also still kind of disappointed in myself about, was Kyle Anderson. I said it on this show. I said it on the pre-lock show. I didn't like him. But I still kept a 50% exposure maximum on him. So I was under the field on Kyle Anderson, but I'm thinking I might want to start to be a little bit more aggressive with my play style. A lot of you know I've had multiple six-figure takedowns, so I've had a lot of success. But I think I'm playing a little bit too safe. Like Kyle Anderson, I knew I didn't like him. I knew I didn't want to play him. I back tested a little bit, and I cut him down to 20%. Was already over the field on Victor. Was pretty close to the nuts. Had a top 10 lineup pretty easily by just getting rid of Anderson. But, you know, it is what it is. Ricardo, you're right. Kyle Anderson was trash, but we saw it coming. We knew it was going to happen, but it happens. Mo, hope you're doing well, man. Let's get this slate. It's a crazy one, but I like it. I like it. Once we got the Mavs news, it made the slate much more interesting. There's a few conflicting pieces of information here for a couple of these games. For instance, the two highest total games on the slate are the Wizards Magic. We saw that earlier this week. Spurs New Orleans Pelicans game, second highest total game on the slate, but the spreads are gigantic here. So we definitely want exposure to some of these games, but it's scary. Yeah, Thomas, I'm 20 maxing. I've been on a decent trend, so I'm going to try to keep it up. For the Wizards, man, these guys were not great last time out, and they're pretty healthy at this point. Jordan Poole is still interesting to me at his price tag at 7,100, but I like to play guys against the Wizards more than I like to play the Wizards themselves, especially when they're all healthy. Daniel Gafford is showing up as a decent value at 5,500. Sim model likes him a decent bit. So he's not someone I'm overly excited about. I want to be clear about that, but the sim model likes him, so he's someone I'll be over the field on. Hopefully he's not too chalky. We haven't updated ownership. I've seen like Twitter posts and people talking about him being extremely chalky today. So once we update ownership in like the next few minutes or hours, that might end up adjusting my exposure to Daniel Gafford. If he's low owned, like somewhere between 5 to 10%, I want to be around like 15, 20. But if he's already 15% owned, I don't foresee myself trying to get 30% of Gafford on this slate. But again, this is a softer matchup when Wendell Carter Jr. is out. So it's not something I'm overly concerned about. It's just more of an ownership play for me. Not looking at any of the other Wizards. Man, Elephant, I'm glad I was able to save you from the Kyle Anderson chalk. I wish I could have saved myself a little bit more. But yeah, that was a call that worked out for us. Next up, we have the Magic. Now, again, we saw this matchup earlier this week, and Paolo had his worst game of the season. Literally, his worst performance of the season. And this is a fantastic matchup for him. I'm hoping he stays, or I'm hoping he is low owned on this slate, because I'm willing to go right back to Paolo here. He disappointed me one time. That doesn't mean that's going to happen again. Franz Wagner, he crushed. Was it Tuesday? Maybe it was Wednesday. I don't know. But he crushed when he faced the Wizards last time out. Just because that happened last game does not mean it's going to happen again. I'm not going out of my way to prioritize Wagner or Cole Anthony, who also had a really good game, but I'm not trying to chase that. Jalen Suggs has been in really good form. His price tag is only 6,200, so he's not that expensive. He's standing out a little bit for me, but there's other plays on this slate that I think I want to prioritize. So I'm going to keep the like on Jalen Suggs, increase the odds of him showing up in my lineups tonight, but I'm not going to force him in or anything like that. Goga is an interesting story. The biggest concern with him is just his minutes. Him and Mo Wags have been splitting pretty evenly. Even some other bigs get involved at times too. So he's not seeing like that upper 20s, low 30s minute upside I like to see, but he's viable at 5,600 going up against the Wizards. So long story short, these guys are fine, but the only guy I'm really going to make sure I have exposure to is Paolo. And Mo, it hurts. It sucks. I don't like playing the Magic. And after whatever night it was, I told myself, I was like, you know what? I'm done playing the Magic. I don't usually do it. They suck in great matchups. But especially if Paolo's low owned, I'm going there. I'm just going to do it. And I expect him to be. Like, I don't really expect him to see a ton of ownership today, just because I think a lot of people will be pretty thrown off from what happened last game. I think it wouldn't shock me if he's still around 15, 20% ownership, but on a 6-game slate, that just feels appropriate to me. I'll be willing to do like 30, 40 and go pretty high. Yeah, Metro. We just got to be aggressive. Not too aggressive, because, for instance, I played around with Kyle Anderson, and I lowered him to just 20%, and I was still able to have like a top 50 line, which is decent. So you don't have to always X out the guys you don't like. Sometimes you can just lower your exposure to them. But I think with some of the really chalky guys I don't like, I just need to be a little bit stronger on that. Thomas, yes. You remind me. That is what happened. And that's why he sat. But as long as he's playing, I'm playing him. Like, if he doesn't play for whatever reason, he's listed as probable, then I'm totally fine with it. Also, Jonathan Isaac is listed as questionable today for the Magic. If he's out, that is a nice boost for Goga or Mo Wags. It just makes their minutes a little bit more consistent. It would make me slightly more interested in Goga. Theo, he won't be owned because he blows. You know, like I said, I don't play the Magic a lot, man. I don't. But the Wizards are so bad defensively. Franz Wagner had a fantastic game last time out. How much did he score? For DK points, he had 46 points. And then he had 45 points the game before against Charlotte. So he was able to crush, and he's not someone that you really like to play too much of. Paolo, because of the injury, thank you again, Thomas, for reminding me about that. He was still struggling throughout that game, though, even before the ankle injury. So I'm not going to pretend like it was a good call and then it was bad because he got hurt. He just wasn't playing well that entire game. But we know Paolo has 50, 60 point upside. He's already shown that this season, not 60, but he's shown like 50, 56, 53 points so far this season. So again, not a guy you feel good about playing, and not a guy I would even say like, hey, you should lock this guy in, but he's a guy I'm going to be over on. High total, bad team. If they blow this team out, I expect him to be heavily involved. For the Sixers, now this is another team that we have a questionable tag on that burned a lot of people on Wednesday. Theo, I don't hate it. For the Sixers, Joel Embiid is listed as questionable. That matters. It didn't matter last time around, but it definitely does matter. The thing that I'm going back and forth on is that the Boston Celtics are a good defense. So they're typically not a team I like to pick on. With that being said, though, Tyrese Maxey sucked last time out. He's had a 50-point performance against the Celtics team already this season, but he also had a pretty low 30 DK point performance as well. So we've seen the floor and we've seen not a ceiling performance, but a strong performance from him. If we can see 50 points, that's pretty solid here for Maxey. I'm hoping for even stronger performance, especially if Embiid ends up sitting. Sim model likes Maxey a decent bit, not anything crazy, but he stands out in comparison to other people in his price range. If Embiid sits tonight, I'm going to be over the field on Maxey. And I don't think it's going to take much because I think Maxey should be pretty low owned on this slate. So if he's like 5 to 10% owned, I plan on being around 20. Outside of that, there's more questionable tags, well, probables. Nicholas Batum is probable. Jaden Springer is probable. These other guys I'm not crazy about. If Embiid sits, I would be willing to go back to a Paul Reed, a Marcus Morris, a Covington, those kind of plays. I just want to have some exposure to them. But if Embiid does play, I don't plan on having exposure to the Sixers tonight. And if Embiid, Doncic are out, those are two really expensive studs. Everyone's going to end up playing probably Jokic. Next up, we have the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis is out still. Al Horford is 6,200. Porzingis being out isn't why I like Horford on this slate. It's more so because if Embiid is out, I like Al Horford on this slate. So I'm keeping a close eye on the Embiid news because him being out makes this matchup much, much softer. So is that it, Theo? Is Embiid scared of Al Horford? Maybe. Maybe. Bronco, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. For me, outside of that, I think Tatum can be viable. Let's see, what's the spread? 6.5. That's not bad. Even if Embiid is out, that does make the matchup softer for everyone involved. Like Tatum, Brown, Giroux, Derek White, they all see a softer matchup. Tatum's really pricey, but he would be viable in a 6-gamer, but not someone I'm looking to prioritize. But not a bad play by any means. Similar to Brown, Holiday, White, they're all fine plays, but they don't stand out for me as much as Al Horford does if Embiid ends up sitting. I just feel like everyone's priced appropriately. So if I get a little bit of them, it's fine, but they're not going to be focal points for me on this slate. For the Knicks, man, Randall and Brunson have been looking good here lately. Unfortunately for them, they're going up against the Raptors, who play at a slow pace and don't score. Teams don't typically score very well against them. Randall and Brunson, they're not stupid expensive. They're not non-K or anything like that. They're priced fine, I think, appropriately for the matchup they have. If you want some sprinkles of them, that's fine. I don't see myself getting to Mitchell Robinson today. I know he disappointed a good bit last night for us, too. Yeah, sim model Mitchell Robinson stands out, but it likes Gafford a bit more. So probably going to, again, focus on Gafford if that ownership is low. And yeah, I'm not planning on playing any Knicks. I know usually B-dubs might have a lean on Randall or Brunson. He's had a pretty good track record on here recently, but I'll have to trust him on that. All right, next up we have the Raptors. Once again, guys, I don't like picking on the Knicks either. They're a really good defense. Everyone knows that, no surprise. Pascal Siakam, though, is still only 8,100, and we know the upside he brings to the table. I typically like playing Siakam in soft matchups, but he's popping in the sim, and so more likely than not, as long as ownership is relatively low, which again it should be, and we'll talk about chalkier plays here later on the slate, but assuming ownership stays pretty low, I plan on being probably double the field. If he's 5% owned, since I'm 20 maxing, I'll probably be around 15-20% Siakam tonight. All right, next up we have the Memphis Grizzlies against the Dallas Mavericks. So we talked about at the start of the show, Luka Doncic is out. Theo, you're spot on. When Luka's out, the Mavs are pretty well known for not having a great defense and for playing at a slow pace. And that's when Luka plays. When Luka is out, the team plays at a bit of a faster pace typically, and their defense does improve a little bit more, slightly, not dramatically. And so with the spread at 6, I'm going back and forth on the Grizzlies players. That's really what I'm still questioning. As long as the game stays close, and it looks like they see the Mavs winning, which I agree, the Mavs are pretty bad. I'm going to take the off of Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. I think they're still definitely viable. I just don't, I'm not certain if the game's going to stay close enough, and there's other guys I want to prioritize a good bit. But it's a situation I'm going back and forth on. I'm on the fence. I like Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. at their price tags, and the Mavs should be playing at a slightly faster pace. It's not the highest total, but third highest total. One of the closer spreads on the slate. I do think Bane and Jackson are very interesting here. I'm going to keep a close eye on the ownership once that comes in too. Bismack Biyombo, only 5,400 still. We can play bigs against the Mavs and do well with it. So I'm fine with him tonight. I'm going to keep the on him. Hopefully I get a little bit of exposure to him, but not too crazy. Not going to be a core play or anything like that. Let's see. Derrick Rose, man. He crushed against the Jazz. He's still only 4,900. I think he's definitely still in play here in this matchup. But again, he's not going to be a core play or anything like that, just given some of the other value we'll have on this slate. Okay, good. Well, Mo, I haven't ran any lines yet, so I'm not completely sure what those lineups will look like. But yeah, I'm okay with the Grizzlies today here. I'm not overly concerned about trying to fade them. If they show up, I'm not going to X them out or anything like that. I just took the off because I didn't want to try and force more exposure to them. But yeah, I like Derrick Rose, Bane Jackson. I think they're all in play. All right, now the Mavs side of things. I wish it was easy and I could just tell you all exactly what to do here, but Tim Hardaway is questionable. And so with Tim Hardaway questionable, it really shifts some of the plays here, but we'll talk through the different possibilities. Yeah, Theo Rose is definitely a solid value play on this slate, but there's more too. So we haven't updated the projections here yet, so this will get updated throughout the day. Kyrie Irving becomes one of the best plays on the slate now. He just is. Probably a core play. Nice matchup against the Grizzlies. Only 9,100 when he's the guy for this team. He's going to be in a lot of my lineups. I don't want to commit to him being a core play quite yet, but I do plan on being having at least around 50%, if not more. So basically, the reason why Tim Hardaway Jr. matters so much, when Luka Doncic and Maxi Kleber are out, the guy who sees the highest increase in usage is actually Tim Hardaway Jr. He sees a 7.3% increase in usage rate. And that's pretty huge for a 5,500 guy. So Tim Hardaway would be one of my favorite Mavs plays on the slate if he plays. If he ends up being ruled out, let's see, when Tim Hardaway is out, that's when things get really interesting. That's when we see guys like Grant Williams then have the highest increase in usage. Grant Williams is already slightly more viable with Luka out. We've seen him do well in these spots, but he really benefits the most when Luka and Tim Hardaway Jr. are out. So Grant Williams is someone that I'm really interested in, and I'm kind of hoping Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't play so I can play more Grant Williams at 4,400 and I can have more exposure to those pricey guys on this slate. Outside of that, next up we see Rashawn Holmes actually sees an increase in usage with Luka, Kleba, and Tim Hardaway out. Derrick Jones Jr. sees a 6% increase in usage, and then Kyrie sees a 5.9% increase in usage. Derek Lively does see a nice increase in DK plus minus differentials. If that matters a lot to you, I do think Derek Lively is a little bit more viable than he is on other slates. So yeah, we'll have this updated here soon, and you'll see these guys start to pop. There are some fringe plays that aren't crazy, but I don't think I'm going there, so I'm not going to touch on it yet. Maybe B-Dubs will be able to talk me into some of the weird Mav guards, but really my thought process here is I'm playing Irving, Hardaway, and then if Hardaway's out, I'm playing Grant Williams, and then I'm okay with some Derrick Jones and Josh Green exposure, but I feel good about it if Tim Hardaway Jr. is out. I don't want to talk about Hardy or Curry. Yeah, Metro, I don't think that's crazy at all to have Kyrie as a lock. Darius said, yo, Tim is not afraid to shoot. He is not. But will he play is the real question. Tim Hardaway, like I said, is going to be a priority if he does play, but if he doesn't, you can't play him. Next up, we have the Spurs, who are on the back end of a back-to-back. And this is another team. We don't really know what to do with them yet because Victor Wembanyama is questionable with that hip injury. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play tonight. I'm kind of expecting him not to play, to be honest. And then Doug McDermott is also listed as TBD. So a situation we're going to have to keep a close eye out for because it is only a 6-game slate and every little piece of news matters. So let's see. With Victor off the court, who sees the biggest boost? We see a nice 4.3% increase in usage with Keldon Johnson. For Keldon Johnson, he's really the guy who benefits the most here. Of course, it is a small boost to Zach Collins as well. This game is the second highest total game on the slate, so I would want some exposure to Keldon Johnson and Zach Collins in the event that Victor Wembanyama ends up not playing. But if he plays, I think it's pretty easy to avoid the Spurs here for the most part. The Pelicans are a pretty tough matchup, and everyone's priced pretty appropriately. We're not getting any extreme discounts. Let's see, what do we have a projected lineup for if Wemby doesn't play? No. I'd be interested to see what the starting lineup looks like. We've seen them move a few guys in and out. It wouldn't shock me if they put Trey Jones in there or even Julian. I'll be interested in either of them if they started. But their price tags, again, not extreme value. Most of the guys we want from a value perspective will probably come from the Mavs or the Sixers. All right, next up, Pelicans. This is the team that has the soft matchup. They're going up against the Spurs. They're the ones we want to target. Kind of like we want to target the Magic against the Wizards. But you can still play some of the Wizards and the Spurs, but the better side is the other side of the ball. So, again, when this team is healthy, really hard to be too excited about any of these guys. Trey Murphy's going to play tonight. That's what he said he plans to play. Jose Alvarado is questionable, so not my favorite thing in the world. Again, you kind of have to pick here between Zion and Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram just has not been great this season, whereas Zion has at least shown some upside in this really soft matchup against the Spurs. It wouldn't shock me if he gets going a good bit here tonight, so he's the one I'm trying to prioritize here. Again, we'll have to see how lineups actually run later today, but he's someone that I want to focus on. Appreciate you, Mo. If you all could, remember to hit the like button, subscribe. We're growing fast here, and always appreciate the support and love you all. I've been showing a lot recently. It really does mean a lot. Let's see. Next up, we have the Nuggets against the Suns. Last game on the slate. Kind of a bit of a boring one at this point with some of the other injury news we have, but This game has just as many questionables as the other games to keep us all questioning everything. But right now we have Jamal Murray listed as questionable and Aaron Gordon listed as questionable. Do I want to go back to MPJ? No, it went very well last time around. Today I plan on having some exposure to MPJ if Aaron Gordon end up being ruled out, but I'm not going to prioritize him or try to force him in and have him in on him, nothing like that. But still viable, but more interesting if Murray and or Gordon end up being ruled out. Nikola Jokic, I expect him to be pretty popular tonight, especially if Joel Embiid ends up missing this game. He's just one of the better pay-up options. Originally for me today, it was Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic as the two best pay-up options on the slate. But with one of those gone and Embiid now gone, it's really just Jokic and Tatum. And for me, it's pretty easy to choose Jokic here if you can afford it. And we're going to have some value from guys like Rose and some of the Mavs and maybe some bigs from the Sixers. So it shouldn't be too hard to pay up for Jokic. But again, we'll have to figure that out more so around lineup construction time on the pre-luck show. So yeah, got to wait and see who ends up being in or out. But if everyone's healthy, I'll probably just get to Jokic here. Anyone else? Yeah, I think we're good. Then for the Suns, we have Devin Booker listed as questionable. You know, we already have Doncic and probably Embiid not playing tonight. If Devin Booker ends up getting ruled out, it would make for a bit of a difficult decision between KD and Kyrie. I would still prefer Kyrie over Durant, but I would make sure I still have some exposure to KD on the slate if Devin Booker ended up missing this game. Outside of that, and if Devin Booker plays, I think KD is still a viable play. But again, I'm prioritizing Irving so much, I doubt I'll be able to have a ton of KD tonight. Similar situation to Tatum, just doesn't stand out too much in comparison to some of the other plays on the slate. So yeah, it's really only looking at these guys if Devin Booker's out. Eric Gordon would see a nice boost for me. A lot of the other guards would just become more viable if Devin Booker doesn't play. But if he does play, not a very interesting game in general. But yeah, like I said, guys, interesting slate. The Mavs, Grizzlies. I like the Magic. I like the Pelicans. These are the four teams I'm really trying to build around tonight. Oh, I like some of the Raptors guys. We didn't talk about Scotty Barnes, but he's GPP viable, has decent upside. I don't think I'll get to him tonight, but another interesting play. But ultimately, Sixers are interesting too if Joel Embiid ends up getting ruled out. So these are really the teams I'm trying to build around tonight. But anyway, I look forward to hopefully seeing everyone on the pre-lock show where me and Brandon will really talk through what we're doing on the slate. Again, link in the description. Feel free to use the promo code BOB if you want a 10% discount. If you're not going to be there, I look forward to hopefully seeing everyone on Monday where we can continue to celebrate more. I know next week's going to be a weird week with the scheduling of the in-season tournament and all that stuff. We'll have a show on Monday for the 2-gamer. We'll have a show on Tuesday. We will have a show on Wednesday. I have stuff on Thursday and Friday outside of DFS, so I won't have a show then. But we'll be around for the first half of the week. So anyway, see you all later, and we'll talk soon. Peace out. Bye.